Steve, I begin with a belated congratulations. I forgot to congratulate you. You won our annual kick time guessing contest.
Oh, by like half a point.
Half a
I'm like
point.
a couple
Yeah, half a point. It came down to what was the game it came down to? Game before this game. No, it came down to this game and you won it because of that. So congratulations on
Solid W in the scorebook. Doesn't matter how you
yeah,
get
that's
there.
fine. I will say, very proud of us. There was not a game that we didn't either get the network or the time for between the two of us. So we are not fully the blind leading the blind.
We are beating every other person who's trying to do this, which is
Zero.
you're looking at each other.
Us. It's each other. Yeah. So congratulations to us. Us is called Stuff Summer Says with
Steve.
Perfect. We have a great interview from the world of Lions247. Mr. Tyler Donohue joined us for a great conversation about what's been going on lately in his world, and kind of just about his career a little bit, because he did come from a football background, and just a little bit of everything. And I thought it was a really great and open, honest conversation from him, and I really appreciated that. And I would like to have a open and honest conversation with you about the news of the week. It's only Monday. It's going to be a busy week, as Tyler even alluded to. And then I got a little bit of a show and tell, just a quick show and tell, but it's not anything that cool, as I drag it across the screen. And then old guy, young guy is Thanksgiving related. So
somebody's got to do it.
Yes, sweet potato pie or pecan pie. They get here.
Pumpkin pie, I think.
It was a pumpkin pie. That's right. It's pumpkin pie. So take a listen to our interview with Tyler, and we will be back after this. Steve, this has been an interview in the making for quite a while. We were supposed to do this interview the Monday after the Northwestern game, and our guest today said, can we reschedule just in case things get a little hectic? And sure enough, things got a little hectic the Monday after the Northwestern game. Now here we are. 1 week away from Penn State playing Rutgers. Our guest today has a connection to Rutgers, I do believe. That's correct. And it's Mr. Tyler Donohue of Lions247, a beat writer. Tyler, thank you for finally making some time to join us, because I know that it has been a hectic 40-some days.
Yeah, if you guys hear that Penn State hired a coach while we're doing this, would you let me know?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, it's message boards seem to have it on lock, so I don't even know why we're chatting with you. No, this is it's an interesting time, I guess. I want to start there. My biggest question for you right now in this process is, when and why do you make the call to start a new hot board?
That's a good question. The policy that we have stuck with from the start, and this is my first experience covering a coaching search, and 24/7 Sports was pretty much like, as soon as they heard Franklin got fired, they're like, you got to get a hot board up. And I was like, I guess I've seen these all over the place for other coach searches. Time to dive in ourselves. The way I've done it is, whenever we add a new name or we remove an existing name, to me, it's a new board, because the board has changed. Now I add notes to it. I've added some notes over the past week, but I haven't gone from 12.0 to 13.0, and I'll let you know if that happens. But like the reason that we've updated is literally just to be like, it's a new list. Like it might not, we're not going to revamp the list every time, but like, hey, if I'm removing Manny Diaz because we're hearing nothing about him, or if I'm adding Marcus Freeman because we're hearing something about him, like then the list becomes different. So that's been the way we've approached it. And I don't know if it makes any sense, but it makes sense for us. And that's pretty much the story to it. Not much more interesting than that.
Okay. All right. I'm glad that I finally have transparency on that. Because that has been my burning question for you throughout this entire process. With that in mind, this is, your, let's say, seventh, eighth season covering the team. How have you juggled the difference between covering X's and O's versus, lack of a better way of saying it, Jimmys and Joes that are going to take over coaching positions, or, well, one Jimmy that already left?
Yeah, well, it has been a challenge. I mean, it's really tricky because this is my ninth season overall. This is my eighth season with 24/7 Sports, and so naturally, every guy in the roster, I know their origin story. Like I probably, the ones that were highly rated, probably had them on the podcast in high school. Like Drew Aller was on my podcast as a high school senior a couple times, and so to see it end this way, where we're only half paying attention to them, a lot of these guys as their career ends, it's strange. I think we all anticipated we'd really just get to November and then it was launch time. Like, okay, let's see what this team is made of. Instead, we got to November and it's like everyone's wondering when is December going to be here, so we can hit the reset button from a roster standpoint, from a coaching perspective. And so it's been tough, but we haven't really done anything different. We show up to the press conference every Monday at noon with Terry, ask as many questions as they'll give us the microphone for. We have player calls every Tuesday on Zoom. That hasn't changed. We show up for those, ask as many questions as they'll give us. Usually we have a question or a call or two on Zoom on Wednesday. Then we have practice availability and then Terry after that and players after that. So, I mean, that flow hasn't really changed, but all of a sudden the time management has. There's certain things that maybe I would do during the course of a game week, dedicate a little more time to writing about the opponent, dedicate a little more time to maybe a player feature story. And now that time may be going toward making some phone calls on the coaching search or making sure that I'm getting information that we have on the coaching search. Or it's just, I also have a 4-year-old daughter and I have a wife. And so I'm not stacking one thing on top of the other. I think it's really about trade-offs. Earlier in my career, I probably would have tried to do it all. I would have slept 4 hours and ignored my family. I'm now at the point as a father and a husband where that's non-negotiable. So to me, it's more what can I trade off that I would normally be doing for a game week, and then make sure I'm being diligent in the coaching search and what that requires of us. And I think it's really been interesting to see this team play well. The last few games, play their best span of football so far this season, I think you could say, because it was looking like we might have a zombie football team on our hands, like for the month of November, where they're just a dead team walking. But I think that all of a sudden there's a little bit more renewed interest, and people, I would encourage people, and I think people are starting to feel this way because they're watching the team play better. Like you only get 12, 13 of these Saturdays out of 365 days in the year. The rest is us going through paperwork, logistics, spreadsheets, data, feature stories that are basically just about a person, not about the football player. And all that stuff is great, but like there's only so many times you get to sink your teeth into 60 minutes of football and the ebbs and flows of a game. And so it's important not to take that for granted. And I've tried not to do that. Tried to kind of enjoy seeing which players are on the rise, where things are trending from a personnel standpoint. But I'd be lying if I didn't say, the last 6 weeks, there have been blurred lines and like I need to let this go on the covering the team front because there's so much riding on the next decision and there's so much riding on what Pat Kraft is going to do, not just from the guy that's going to be standing at the microphone and taking my questions for the next few years, but how that's going to impact the overall roster, what the depth chart looks like next year. And so those ramifications are very difficult to ignore. I know we're all fixated on like the one name and the one guy who's going to take the mantle as head coach, but there's so many different kind of things that are deeply rooted in this process that do warrant your attention. And again, I'm not going to do both things at the same time at 100%. So if I covered the team, maybe 70% of what I was doing, and you've noticed that, well, there's a reason for it, and I'm not going to apologize for it.
What are you noticing people want from you? You're talking about your decisions. Are
Yeah.
people giving you different feedback or consuming stories differently and content differently? Like, what are they wanting? What have you seen that they want in the past 6 weeks?
Yeah, 100%. It's been different. I think it went from people were kind of hate clicking after like the UCLA game, and they wanted to kind of read how you were, I guess validating their thoughts. And there's certain things like that I was willing, like there were certain things that you have to write about after they lose to UCLA that I didn't think I'd be writing about this year, and more the same against Northwestern and after that game. But I think we were actually getting to a point of apathy rather than hate. I think we were kind of bordering on that. I think that was kind of the case with the team itself going against Ohio State. I mean, every year Ohio State, it's like you can't put enough Penn State Ohio State coverage up on our site or out into the internet. And this year it was like pretty much everyone was like, "Nah, I'm good. What's going on with the coaching search?" Like it was kind of remarkable in that way. Not necessarily surprising, but there has definitely been more of an appetite for coaching search related things, for roster related things, for forward thinking things. I feel so bad for my colleague Tyler Cavaruso, who I know you've had onto the show. He does such a fantastic job covering recruiting, but it has been one decommitment story after the next, and people have really tuned out so much of his coverage. And I keep telling him, hey, Soon it's going to swing the other way. They're going to hire a coach, and everybody's going to want to know what's happening with recruiting. But yeah, it's been a tune out on a lot of stuff regarding our recruiting that would normally get a ton of clicks. And there has been less enthusiasm to read a story about a player, like kind of a one-off story about a player and how well he's doing this season. People just aren't all that interested, unfortunately. But we're doing incredible numbers. We're surpassing our expectations for what we thought. I mean, I think if this team was, I don't know, 9-2 right now, I don't think we'd be doing as good of numbers on our site as we are right now. So it's kind of when you look at the balancing act, it's paid off for us in terms of a business standpoint. Like we have sold far more subscriptions looking for a coach than when Penn State finally break through and got to the playoff. It's just that's the way it is. But I think that you have to kind of read the room a little bit. And right now, that room would probably rather me make some phone calls on a coaching candidate and bring them some information there, rather than sitting down to write a 1,500 word story on a senior player on this team. And unfortunately, that is what it is. And hopefully, in the offseason, we can get back to some of that. But yeah, that's reading the room right now.
And you hinted at it, and this will probably be the first part of whatever offseason is. Coach is just the first domino, right? Then there's coordinators, then there's whatever else. Are you, how do you prepare to be less reactionary than you're just going to have to be? Because they're going to name the people, you have to figure out, okay, we do a feature story on them, who's coming with them. How do you, or can you prepare not to be reactionary, to put yourself in a position to differentiate in content or be strategic with your content in any way?
Yeah, I think one thing I really try to do as much as possible within the 24/7 Sports Network is we are surrounded by people who do a really good job on their respective campuses. And so, in the instance where Andy Kotelnicki was getting hired as offensive coordinator, we had some pretty good tea leaves on that because of people that I respect out in Lawrence. And as we got a little bit closer, and he actually got hired, like I was able to have one of our Kansas beat reporters on the podcast, have one of our guys do kind of a Q&A about Andy Kotelnicki to learn more about him. So I'm going to tap into that network as much as I possibly can. We've got a great group of guys at CBS on their analyst team too that I'll reach out to when this hire is eventually made and try to get some applicable perspective on that, because I can, just like everybody else, I can go to a guy's Wikipedia page and go to his bio on his last college website and kind of regurgitate all that stuff. And you've got to do that for some of the initial stories. But I think some of the wave two, wave three coverage will be, who are the most likely staff members for him to bring along based on his tree or based on who he's worked with in the past. And then something I know that we've been talking about behind the scenes, primarily with Tyler Calvaruso, is who are the most likely recruits and transfer targets that are going to be correlated with this guy? Who's in his recruiting class right now? Who are some players on his roster that maybe already have ties to this region, or maybe he would just naturally want to bring with him? And so there's a lot of that stuff that's kind of right behind in the pipeline once we get something figured out here. But I think one thing that's going to be really sporadic and difficult to gauge is what's happening with the guys who are currently on campus. What are the motives of those, 75 non-senior players that are on the roster right now? What do they see for themselves beyond November 29th? And that's a question that's hard to answer right now. And I think considering how guys have bonded behind Terry Smith, a big looming question has become, is Terry Smith part of the equation in one way or another? And how could that kind of factor into what happens next? So people have told me, some family and friends are like, well, they're not going to the playoff this year. You're going to have a much quieter like December and January. And I'm telling them, at least last year, I knew like there were actually set dates where I had to go cover things. Now it's literally like I could, if I wake up at the wrong moment, I could have 8 texts about the guy who just entered the transfer portal, or the coach that they just brought in, or the coach who just left. And so it's going to be like walking on eggshells a bit. We're going to have to lean on each other as a team. I'm glad that I'm not a solo act over at Lions 24/7, because, I mean, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, there could be something that pops up, and we'll see what happens. But it's going to be controlled chaos, and we'll see how much we can actually control it.
Let me one more. I usually ask the competition question, right? I ask about the consumers. What about the competition? How aware are you what other people do? Do you care what other people do? How does that play out in your ecosphere?
We have so many fantastic reporters and writers and podcasters on this beat. And I've been straight up with them in the past. Like, I'm not reading a lot. I'm not listening to a lot. I'm so consumed by my own Penn State coverage world where I like to unplug. And so when I'm reading, it's usually some, some fiction, or it's going to be, if I'm listening to a podcast, it's going to be something about history. I'm not really, trying to plug into outlets that are Penn State related, and it's no disrespect to them. I think it's part of the reason why my fandom across sports isn't that strong. Like when I was in college, Sports Center, I'd watch it 3 times a day. Now I can go an entire NFL Sunday without sitting down. I'll set my fantasy lineup, but like my Saturday, and in this case, my Saturday morning, I didn't go to bed till about 6 a.m. It's all football. It's all me doing the best I can trying to cover a football team. So I tend to avoid football teams now more than I did in the past. But I think, and in terms of what you're saying competitive wise, of course, we don't want to be the second to every single story. You're not going to get every breaking news story. You're not going to get everything, but we want to make sure we're competitive. We're sprinting to as many things as we possibly can, but we're also being responsible as best we can. And I think when you talk about that battle, so much of it is about just showing up. Like I said, like we are showing up on Mondays. We're asking for the microphone as much as they'll give it to us. Same deal after practice on Wednesday. There'll be 3 of us, myself, Daniel Gowan, and Mark Brennan, and our photographer, Grace Brennan. Me, Mark, and Daniel will get as many questions as we can with whoever we can. We'll gather all that. We'll bring it to our board. I don't know if everybody else is doing that. I don't keep tabs on what they're doing, but I'm very confident that no one is asking more questions in media settings than us. And I think that's really been the case for probably the last 4 or 5 years. And I think beyond that, when you're talking about showing up, that goes throughout the year. Like there's random events, whether it's like the Thon event in Lash where they open the doors and it's really about the kids, and it's a wonderful thing to experience. And then afterwards, you get a chance to talk to a few players, and then we show our face at every prospect camp. It's a lot of the most personal interactions I had with James Franklin were those June and July prospect camps where he might ask your thoughts on a prospect, and he might share a nugget on something with you. And yeah, it kind of goes across the position coaches. It's really hard to do those kind of interactions once you get in August because they like to say they're in their submarine, and I think we are too in our own way. You're just kind of tuning a lot out. But by showing up to every prospect camp, not only do you get a feel for the future of the program, maybe, and some guys down the road who maybe end up transferring or committing to the team, but you get kind of a sense for the humans behind the titles, whether it's coordinator or coach, and so I think just showing up is, if you're looking to distance yourself from the competition or you're just looking to stand out, we're at everything we can. We take turns checking out. Mark might go to Jamaica for a week with his wife. Yeah, I might go down to Florida with my family, and Daniel might go visit his girlfriend in Arizona. But we're going to pick up the slack. But we find times to get away. But when we are here, we are where we need to be, and I don't think that I would say that we are present as much as anybody on this beat, and I think in a lot of ways that more so in terms of physically being where the action is, where the conversations are being had.
Gotcha. Thanks.
When do you, when and how do you pick and choose when to chime in? You have all of these different outlets. You have writing itself, you have the podcasts, but then you also have the message board aspect of it. When do you pick and choose between those two or those three really? And how do you pick and choose between those three?
Yeah, well, the podcast, I just set a plan. During the season, we record Monday after Terry's press conference, after we get a little content up. I record Wednesday, and then we record a preview show on Thursday, which is really just Mark and Daniel and me. Wednesday's kind of up for grabs. Last week it was a coaching carousel conversation. Sometimes it's a opposing beat reporter that we bring in to look at the other team, recruiting conversation. And then the offseason, I try to give us all a little bit more of a relief. And we usually go 2 days a week in the offseason. And that's where you can kind of flex your imagination muscles a little bit more and come up with some concepts for segments that we want to do, big picture stuff. But we're in the hamster wheel right now. Like once August hits through this weekend, it's pretty much set it and forget it with the podcast thing. So that's kind of taken care of itself. Now with writing stories and with going to the message board, I think the message board right now has been so important because not everything warrants a story on the coaching search, but there's a lot that warrant like a heads up, like, hey, this is what I'm hearing, just a quick note, things like that. During the week, a few years ago, we decided to make an effort to have basically an updates thread throughout the week from Terry Smith's press conference all the way through our position coach call on Thursday late morning. And I think that's been great because we're literally on these calls or coming right off of them. One, it keeps me accountable and us accountable to actually transcribe things because over the course of this week, you can gather a bunch of audio and then to be like, I don't feel like typing through this. But I think it's great because you get it right to the board and it's kind of there. And then if you want to plug it for into stories, you can just copy and paste it and you've already done the work. But it also gives our people a sense of like, where's the pulse on this team right now? What are guys saying about certain subjects? And so I think that the message board is really a good tool in that regard because if you're writing for a newspaper or you're writing under like a strict, word count situation, there's so much that you just can't provide in that regard, and you've got to really pare it down. And I'm not going to put, 1,500 words of quotes in a story of mine, but when I have 1,500 words of quotes typed out on our message board, I can grab 300 words of those quotes and then plug them into an article, which is very helpful. And I think with the message board, I didn't really know what to expect when I was hired at 24/7 Sports. It was probably the most intimidating aspect of it because you're basically being judged in live time. And unlike almost everybody who's on that message board, who's either a Penn State graduate or someone who grew up, bleeding blue and white, this was all foreign to me. I did not come to State College until I was receiving a paycheck to cover Penn State. I never visited here for any reason. And so to me, it was like a little bit of an imposter syndrome scare. It's like, are people going to like basically like, go through everything I say with a fine-tooth comb and question it? And I grew out of that. Part of that was just building my own foundation of knowledge of Penn State football. And part of it was realizing like people aren't so bad on that board. They're quick to react. But as long as you're bringing them factual information and I try to be objective with it too. I've never been a guy who brings sugar-coated information to the board because that'll rub people one way. And then I've never really tried to insult people on our message board if they have a certain viewpoint. I'll be contrarian to their viewpoint sometimes. I did that a few times regarding James Franklin this year when people were really trying to kind of pour on him and kind of pile on him with negativity. It's kind of like, well, hey, what about this is a good trait. This is some good things that happened as well. But at the same time, I'd had no problem being like, wow, he is really underutilizing Katron Allen. Like, what is the deal there? And so I think the message board thing for me is it's a living, breathing, functioning deal that you're engaged in conversation. There's a ton of anonymity to it. I don't have that benefit of anonymity. It's me, it's my name, it's my face. But there's plenty of people that I feel like I know on a personal level, and all I know is their little username, which isn't even a real name. And I think when you put an article out there, you're just kind of like, well, I hope people appreciate it, and you turn the page. But with the message board, it's like I drop an update this morning on the coaching search thing, and I could walk away for an hour, and people have follow-up questions and all sorts of stuff, and I can kind of pick and choose what to address. Whereas an article, I think usually you just kind of get, a quick comment that doesn't really ask a follow-up question. And so it's a whole different beast. It's something that's part of the job. I sometimes I do wonder, like I used to live in a life where I was pretty much writing feature stories at a national level, and I didn't have a message board, which requires a lot of attention for me, and it requires a lot of energy and investment in time. And so sometimes I wonder, like, well, if I cut that out of my life, what would I be able to accomplish on a daily basis? How many more interviews could I do for stories? How much time could I like set aside? But that's the network I work for. 24/7 Sports, it's a big pillar of what we do. And so over the years, it's become just kind of a natural component. But it's nice to know that if I got a different job and it didn't demand that, like, okay, I can still write, I can still podcast, and I can probably do those things to a higher ability without the message board. But at the same time, now I know that if I needed another job and they wanted someone with message board experience, well, I got that too. And so it's a lot of hats to wear sometimes. I also do a lot of management for our social media. And so some days it's like, whoo, what was it like when I was just a writer? But it's okay because I've been rewarded pretty well by 24/7 and CBS. And I think we've got a really good community at Lions 24/7.
Before you became a writer, you worked in football, correct?
I did.
Worked at Rutgers, right?
Yeah, I was.
Well,
My parents would tell you I've always been a writer. I used to type out like
okay.
NFL previews in like sixth grade, and then we'd go to a family party to watch the Eagles, and I'd have like a 1,000-word write up on every game with like silly little quips. And I would pass them around, and I've always just enjoyed writing. Period. Like I used to write like just imaginative stories when I was younger and in high school even. But I really kind of I think I probably got the door open for me to get into this kind of a job because of that blend of being a capable writer, but also someone who has spent time at the college football level behind those closed doors for a variety of seasons.
So what is the biggest thing that surprised you about being on the other side, the journalism side? And what do you look through at with a different lens now?
I think that one thing that surprises me is how there still is a little bit of that idolation, like where people view coaches and players as though they're any different than you and me. Like literally, like there's no reason that you need to be like going up to James Franklin and cowering. Like he is doing his job, you are doing your job. And there's people that I see on this beat who either they think that he's like some superhuman or any coach, they think they're some kind of superhuman person that they don't measure up to. And same with players even like we could be covering 18 to 22 year olds young men and putting them on a pedestal. I think I'm surprised that how there are quite a few people, and that's not just this beat, that's not just college football. It's like anybody who covers sports,
Yeah.
the fact that you're still viewing it like you're an 8-year-old kid trying to get an autograph at a baseball game. Like I remember being that kid, but like I think there's a level of understanding and kind of like grounded nature to coverage that you can accomplish when you show up and be like, everyone here is just trying to do the best at what they do. And like no matter how much you're getting paid to do that or how much the spotlight's on you, like it doesn't give you any extra clout. Like I don't feel like I'm coming from the point of view as a peasant because I'm going to interview a quarterback who's making multi-million dollars. Like that doesn't factor into my mindset. And I think it's a little surprising how many people kind of do have that. And I suppose that's from being on the other side of this, where I spent 60 hours a week as an undergrad at Rutgers working for Greg Schiano. And I would see how guys were treated away from team facilities, and we had a good run back then. And then we come into facilities, and everybody's just a flawed person, trying to do the best they can, and most people don't even, just trying to keep it together, like we all are. And so I think it's dangerous when it's not dangerous, but it's a tricky thing when you're trying to cover a team and you haven't shaken off that whole like they have this aura about them. They're different. They're not normal people. They're accomplished. Like they have put in a bunch of work to get to this point. Many of them are athletic specimens. Many of them are incredibly intelligent people and have great innate traits to be leaders. But they are no different than you and me and anybody else. So I think that's really important to be able to walk up, look somebody in the eye, and have a conversation with them, and also understand when they're trying to talk down to you and maybe let them know that you're not going to play that game and that you are going to be on an equal playing field and there needs to be reciprocated respect because unfortunately I see people also allow themselves to be disrespected by athletes, be disrespected by coaches. That's never something I've been interested in. And so I think that's maybe something that has been in my back pocket from working on the other side of this process. I just think that some people still think of like the trading cards or the Madden rosters and just looking like they're looking into a separate reality when that's not really the case.
What's been the most valuable thing for you as this whole season has changed and what you're being asked to do, right? You talked about what people are expecting of you. Is it the contacts from the recruiting? Is it contacts through the career? Because this is new to most everybody on the beat for it to happen this way, even if they experienced it 12 years ago. So what do you think have been the things that have helped you and will help you in the next couple weeks or so to do your job best?
I think it really is just being okay with not having a firm set plan, like not having like here's what my day looks like, and if it's not like that, I'm gonna kind of get shaken out of my boots and not know how to handle things because right now I think you just got to be able to react on the fly. Like when that James Franklin situation went south so fast, like we were in a great, like the best Beaver Stadium environment I've ever experienced. I was watching him run that team out of the tunnel, and literally 3 weeks later, he's getting like the biggest vitriolic response I've ever seen in person to a single person. And we walked away from that and was like, okay, James Franklin might not be employed tomorrow. And that's what happened. And since then, it's really felt like just be ready. Just be ready to write about whatever we need to, be ready to talk about whatever we need to. and do your best to be diligent in it and do your best to be professional about it. I think in terms of kind of what has helped me is probably the fact that I try to implement empathy, and I think talking to the players lately, that's been helpful. Like you have to understand where where the subject is in their life. Like when we were talking to the captains within days of James Franklin being fired, like you have to have a different tact for that than you normally would on a normal game week. And I think seeing them kind of come out of that fog a little bit, now there's definitely a different vibe around the team. You can approach them differently. But I do think that just understanding that from a human side standpoint, like this is stressful for me. This is stressful for everybody covering the team right now. No one expected this. And so if it's stressful for me, imagine showing up to work every day at the Lash building and realizing that the guy who brought you to campus lost his ability to come into that building anymore. And like they've had to digest that. And if I knew that my contract was expiring after the Rutgers game, I'd be going through a bit of personal turmoil right now. We got a mortgage here. I got a kid in school here. My wife has an office here. And so I think about all these coaches, and when I'm interacting with them, whether it's on the record, off the record, I'm trying to be very mindful of where their life is at right now and the instability and the unpredictability of it. And I think that's probably, something that a tool that I've tried to use here because this is crazy. I mean, this is like I think we all knew it was going to be a season that deserved a spotlight, one way or the other. But in my mind's eye, when I thought about things going bad, I was thinking like 8-4. I was not thinking 3-6 or James Franklin being fired on October 12th. And yeah, I don't know if that's the answer to the question exactly, but ultimately, I think the biggest tool I've been using or what I've been trying to keep in mind is just again, these are people that are going through a situation. Yes, there's football games. Yes, there are shortcomings to this football team, but like these are people that are hurting right now. And they got people that rely on them and people that trusted them when they uprooted their life from wherever they were before this to come to central Pennsylvania to work towards goals at Penn State and with the football program. And I think as long as you keep that in the back of your mind in these conversations, people are going to be a little more reticent to converse with you, be open with you, rather than have their guard up and essentially give you, basically just a run-of-the-mill answer, a status quo answer. And I think it's worked so far. I really appreciate the people that we've spoken to, whether it's in the media settings or just exchanging some texts or having a quick phone call with. It's not easy. It's not easy for them. It's not easy for me. And we're just trying to do the best we can.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Last one for me. What happens first? The Katron Allen hits 4,000 yards or the hot board hits 4,000 pages?
I wish I knew where both those numbers stood. How many more does Patron need?
I think he only needs 46 yards, but I feel like there's been like 150 pages added in like the last couple of hours on the main hot
Let me
board.
let me pull it up. It's never far from my sight, trust me. What do we got? We got Oh, I'm looking at the views and the comments. We are at how many pages here? Oh
It
my
was like
God.
2,700 before we started, I think.
We're at, yeah, 2777. So 4,000 comments. Oh man, I'm gonna say Katron Allen hits that mark by the second quarter in Piscataway this Saturday.
Okay.
Um, but I also do realize that there could be some heavy smoke before kickoff on Saturday, and there could be some things trending towards certain directions with this coaching search coming to a close. So I'm going to go with Katron Allen, not to shortchange what is being done and the conversations being had. But we got people working the night shift. I mean, it is crazy how much conversation is, and sometimes you'll be like, "Oh my gosh, what did I miss here?" And then there'll be like a lot of pictures of people, pets, people debating about their favorite place to eat in State College, and it's a beautiful thing. Like I said, it's a living, breathing, functioning thing on our message board, and that thread is a perfect example of that. So I'll say Katron, which has been awesome to see, by the way, what he's been able to accomplish this year. But it is a machine over at Lions247 on our message board right now in that specific thread. And I'm grateful that people are viewing it as some kind of destination, whether they're getting entertained by it, whether they're looking for facts from it. Why ever they're there is great. It's good for business one, but I think it's also been really cool to just get a pulse on the Penn State community. Again, I'm not from this area. I can't pretend that I have deep roots here beyond the time I started working. I don't have a lot of close friends and family that are part of the Penn State thing. So I learned something almost every day about like how people are feeling about the situation, what the motivating factors are within this community, what they want from the next coach, what they don't want from the next coach. And I do know this, Pat Kraft, he doesn't get this right. He's going to hear about it, and I'm going to hear about it a lot on the message board too.
There it is.
True.
There it is. All right, Tyler. Go ahead, plug the business. I know you guys got a couple sales going on, a couple promotions going on for various reasons this week.
Thank you. Yeah, well, we've got a 30% off right now going on, annual subscription. So you're in through next November, essentially, if you hop on now. Busy off season. We do cover basketball. There is a basketball team here at Penn State. We do cover that as best we can, but you're going to be good with all the transfer portal movement in January. I love the way we cover recruiting. Again, people kind of are staying away from it right now, but you're going to have a ton of recruiting coverage. The spring ball is going to be right around the corner with the new head coach and all that stuff and plenty of new roster. And then if you just want to take like a test run and see what we do over at our site, climb on board. You got to play full price for a month, but with that deal, you get automatic access to Paramount Plus because we're part of the Paramount CBS community. So you get everything that goes with Paramount Plus, all the streaming shows, all the sports and everything like that. So you're kind of getting a great little perk there that I think you may end up using Paramount Plus more than you end up visiting Lions 24/7. And check out our podcast, Lions 24/7 podcast, and definitely follow along with our guys on social media, Daniel Gallen, Tyler Calvaruso, Mark Brennan, and Grace Brennan as well. And so give us a look. And if you're already there, thank you for being there. And this will be a special week for me, as you mentioned, my Rutgers roots, 3 years there on the recruiting staff under Greg Schiano. That was Greg Schiano 1.0 back in 2006 through 2008. So I think they have a good chance. I actually love their chance to go there and take care of business. And so, believe it or not, we might have a bowl to discuss. I did not think we'd be in that conversation. And so, hey, whether we're going to the Bronx, whether we're going to Nashville, 13th game, it seems to be on the table. And so this season could extend a bit further. And they better hire a coach before that 13th game because the gas tank is starting to run a little bit empty, but we can keep going for another week or two.
Steve, what I appreciated, besides him dealing with my internet going in and out there on that interview, what I appreciated about how that conversation went was the aspect of humanness, I guess, human nature, humankind, if you will, of both him being kind of vulnerable with us about how busy this season has been for him and balancing all of that. And then also just kind of navigating the emotions of the moment, covering people that are kind of going through this. I thought that was really interesting perspective to hear. And I thought that was a really good perspective to kind of be reminded of or talk about or think about. I thought that was good. And I don't know. I really appreciate the work that he has been doing this year. I feel a lot more plugged in from him because of what he's doing and how he's doing it. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I think when you make that reference about people's lives along with their livelihood, in some instances it can sound superficial, right? Oh yeah, there's people that are involved with this change, and you're kind of tossing it out there. I thought the way he offered his perspective and his approach going into it gave a little bit more depth and thought than I think some people put into it. And I do think the football background with him, I found the interesting of the deification, right, of coaches and players as something that was interesting that he's not going to be a part of, but sees happen but doesn't. And I think coverage is better when you can somehow shake that off. When you can get to the person behind the stuff, I think you get better coverage.
But I really like what he said about the other, it's a two-way street, because I think that is very valid. And I think that, we see coaches blowing up at people. We saw, I think it was Lincoln Riley this week that blew up at a reporter. Even Bill O'Brien, God love him. What up, Trevor? Like that little blow up earlier this season. Like, I think that's an important thing that we forget that he's forgotten as well. So, but anyways, I thought that was, I really appreciate Tyler making some time. It's been really busy for him. I'm glad he finally made some time to hang out with us. Really appreciate that.
Agree.
Okay. Let us let's venture on. I want to get all my notes in front of me here. Let us venture on to Saturday and the news of the week. Where to begin? Look at you. Steve's already excited because
I'm just waiting. I don't know where you're going, so I can't wait.
All right. I think I think I want to start. I mean, I'm very happy that Penn State won. We can talk about the atmosphere, but that will come into this. And I'm very happy that Penn State played the way it did, and I'm very happy about everything. I am, though, sitting here thinking that we are probably less than 10 days away, potentially, from the saga that is the Penn State head coaching search from being over. And I think it took its maybe messiest turn yet on Saturday. All because of a button. Literally all because of a button. And I think it's a fascinating turn. I think that you and I, sit in a unique position that I feel like we are equipped to talk about this, the turn it took. And then I have been thinking over the last 48 hours, more so semi-rhetorically than anything else, of what is the tangible, legitimate, real reason that is not warm and fuzzy to hire Terry Smith. And I've been thinking about that a lot. And I know that I am the person that came on this podcast, and said James Franklin gave up on Penn State, and that is why he really got fired. And I recognize some of that is tied to warm and fuzzy. But at the same time, as I sit here, I cannot think of a single non-warm and fuzzy reason for why Penn State should hire Terry Smith. And further to that, I think the other thing that I keep thinking about is the person that is making this hire has not cared about warm and fuzzies.
That's probably true.
For much of this process. This guy, that Pat Kraft has been all about moving forward. He literally put a name on the stadium. Yeah, sorry, on the field, not the stadium, on the field. He put an extra logo on the field. He has ripped the Penn State Nike any shreds of relationship to pieces, and now that's going in the direction of Adidas. In some ways, this hire becomes about the future, and that's what this hire's always been about. But I think that there is no indication that Pat Kraft wants to go back in time, or go back and mess with some wounds that were weirdly reopened a little bit on Saturday night in probably the biggest way since the scandal broke. I think that at this point, I also don't envy the position that Pat Kraft is in, because he's now got to try to calm the tribe, and that's going to be a very difficult thing when it feels like there is a pretty hefty split. There's a lot there. I want to give you.
Yeah, so I'll try to go chronologically from what I can remember.
Okay.
Wins and losses are tangible, right? So I think those wins might be the most tangible thing that's in Terry Smith's favor.
Okay.
I know the emotion that comes with them. I understand the emotion that comes with them. Players supporting him. But the most tangible thing is the feel that has changed, even though that's an emotion. But the wins are tangible. The feel has changed because of him. I do think, yeah, Pat Kraft is forward thinking, and it's about the money in the business. I think from the beginning, he's tipped his cap the right way at Penn State history and tradition, and we need to be this together. So I think that storyline exists if they were to want to go that direction. I don't probably think, and less so now in the past 30 seconds of you explaining, reminding me stadium and sponsors and changes and coaches who've moved on to other things now, who probably just didn't go of their own volition. So when you've got it, and this is the biggest move that Kraft's going to make biggest hire Kraft's going to make in his career. Certainly the biggest one at Penn State, but then the biggest one in the career. And I think larger, while I appreciate the Terry Smith narrative, respect him, respect all the people who support that idea. And if you wanted to name him and see how it went for 2 years and put some people around him, and I guess I want to stop there now quick. And there's an assumption with Terry Smith that he needs support, that he's not ready for this somehow, that he's not, and maybe he's not, but the narrative among the media and everyone else is, well, yeah, could be Terry, but he hasn't done this anywhere else before, so we need to prop him up, or maybe it'd be the lesser of evils or the different kind of thing. I think that's kind of an affront to him in some ways. I mean, maybe he just hasn't had the opportunity, but I think to flat out assume that he can't do it. And there was one more thing that I was going with. Oh, and I guess my bigger picture thing in all this is if we were watching this from the outside, if this were Arkansas, if this were some other school, and Arkansas is out of a coach, so it's not that reason, and we watched them, that school, name the longtime associate head coach who's been there forever, knows the DNA of the place, is the interim. From the outside, you'd be thinking, okay, that's nice. They did that to keep the program stable, and they're going to hire somebody who can really do the job in the next few weeks. And sometimes I feel like people are too close to it now to not be that cynical or self-aware of it. Although I do think most of the media seems to think, oh, Terry'd be great. Terry's a nice guy, but they don't think he's going to get the job. So I don't know. There's a lot, and the way it blew up Saturday with the button and then the people cheering and chanting, and then today with the news conference, now I'll stretch it and then be done. When I think it was Mark Woganrich who asked the question about, why have you become a little more vocal about your candidacy? And I thought the best answer Terry gave with the whole news conference, which I didn't think was super strong until then, was, well, who's going to speak for me if not me? That's a nice line. And that's a nice bit of truth for a lot of people who may think previously Penn State didn't speak up for themselves, for people who may think they get marginalized in general. I thought that was a super answer. There were some other things I didn't think were super after all the authenticity we've had. So, yeah. I don't expect, I guess I'd be surprised if he were named the coach. I don't know that I'd be disappointed. I don't think there's anybody left that's going to wow me and say, oh my gosh, that's the right answer. But I think I'm a minority in that. And I think Penn State, I thought I was done, but now I'm done. I'll stop now. I promise.
Keep going.
The Penn State division that has existed for years is definitely not in a place to be solved if he doesn't get named. And even if he does, there's a portion of the fan base be like, oh, we're looking backward just because he played for Paterno. Does that make him qualified? So, yeah, there's a lot there, and it's a big decision.
That's where I'm at with it, because I certainly would follow the second camp that you mentioned.
Right.
I struggle with a couple things about this, and we have talked about this multiple times. And I feel like I keep bringing this point up, so I'm sorry if I sound like broken record to everybody listening. But I feel like we are 2 years away? No. 4 years away from the first class stepping on campus that was not alive while Paterno coached. There is a good chance, I don't mean to be morbid, but there is a good chance that a large percentage of the fan base is gone by the time the next contract, if the next guy stays for 12 years. And the younger generation, my generation, old guy, young guy, will be the predominant Penn State average fan and wants to help this place kind of move forward. And I think that is what, to your very good point of like Pat Kraft has winked at it, nodded to it, whatever with it. But I think that is what a lot more of my generation and the generation that is younger, because all of the generation that's younger than me, probably anybody born after 2000, more or less, most of their nostalgia for Penn State football is tied up in the James Franklin era, and wants to see and find out more about that. And so why I think I am frustrated that the button came into play is that even if, to your point, even if Penn State does not hire Terry Smith and they don't keep him on as the GM or whatever, as the secondary coach or whatever role, the assistant head coach role, whatever it may be, now we are going to have to open up all of these conversations all over again that we for the most part by this time last season we're all singing Kumbaya on. Like Penn State was in a much better spot because Penn State football was winning, because Penn State was on the precipice of potentially making a national championship, right? And I just, that's where I'm like, I don't envy Pat Kraft, because that right now still, though, is where the money sits, or a decent, so let me rephrase that. Supposedly that is where a decent portion of the money fits. There are all these people that are out there saying that they're withholding money because they want to wait until Joe is honored, whatever that means. Doesn't make any sense to me. I care about Penn State. I don't care about one person. I care about Penn State. I would want to support Penn State, period. So that's a messy hot take, but I think this is just a really the button made the situation so much more messy.
Well, I think the button, yes, and the button put an extra burden of responsibility on Terry. He knew people were going to see it, so he was putting himself out there. He was saying, "This is what I believe and what I stand for," and I think that's great. And I don't necessarily think he's wrong. For those if anyone who's withholding money in that situation, stop it. Again, family's name's in the library. They're there. Even Coach Paterno himself during his lifetime would tell you it's not about him, it's about the bigger place. So where I do believe Terry now has a responsibility if he isn't named the coach. In the past 3 days, they made a nice full-fledged effort. You know, they with the button and the Instagram account and the players with the signs and all that stuff. And there's a part of him that had to know that was happening, I would think. So he had to be okay with it. I mean, not that he was integral with it, but I think, kind of, maybe. But Button, I think he now has a responsibility to, no matter what happens, if he's saying, Joe is the guy, this is what I learned from, this is who I am, place is bigger than one person. If he doesn't get the gig, I think it's on him more than ever to step up and say, okay, gave it a shot. Love this place. They didn't choose me. Whoever they chose, you need to get behind him, whether he's here or not. I mean, I think that is now, that onus is clearly on him to say, okay, yes, I want this gig. And if nobody's going to speak for me, I'm going to speak for me. But if you're going to pull in Joe and what you teach those players and what we say we taught those players, and there's no names on the back, and it's about the we and not the me, then you have to say, if you don't get chosen, no matter how much it hurts, wish it would have been me, but I think that's the right decision, not my decision. And you can't half-ass it. It has to be a full-on support of the next person if you're going to say those beliefs are what it is. Or the wounds that little scab has been scratched again. Maybe it's not as big as some people are making it out to be, but it's there.
Yeah, and I don't know. That's what I've been struggling with. Like, how big is it?
Maybe the media is all old enough to have been around when Joe was here, so it's an easy storyline. I don't know.
But let's stick with the media aspect of it, because I do think, let's be the third party arbiter in the situation, the blurred line between media and fan that we are. I do think that media is on one side, thinking about Audrey's piece, and then even some of the questions Neil asked today, Wogo even kind of asked it, Rich maybe asked it, a couple other people asked it, and then the fan side of it, right? Like, and I think that, I think somewhere in there is where it sits, and it is what it is. And I do think what I was thinking about, and I think I said this earlier this week, is like two things can be true. One is we can be very excited and rally around Terry Smith and celebrate this moment for a Penn Stater who worked very hard. If that was you, that was me, that was any of my friends, whatever, that was a Penn Stater, and they got to experience that, I would be just beaming in pride and joy for them, because I think it's a great moment. But at the same time, he can also just not be the right guy for the job.
I feel great for him. Yes. And I'm thrilled for him. I mean, from seeing him on the field as a student at the same time to now, I feel great for him. He does not, in many ways, and certainly not a majority of ways, but I don't know that the next candidate will, meet the check the boxes that Pat Kraft said he wanted. I mean, not that he can't frame himself that way, but when Pat Kraft said that, nobody was saying, well, James is gone, but I bet you there's somebody in his staff that can do this job. It's Terry. Nobody said that. And again, maybe he didn't have the opportunity to show that out, but everybody was expecting a sexier, bigger, splashier, proven, whatever else. Again, doesn't mean that Terry can't do it, but this is just not what people, if it plays out that way, it's not what people will be expected. I won't be disappointed, but it wasn't what I was sold.
I think I've been thinking about that. Like, we don't know where it's Monday. We don't know where the search really is at, but we've heard the name's Bob Chesney, and I don't think that he checks a lot of the boxes necessarily that Pat Kraft laid out. I don't know that Eli Drinkowitz does, even though if that's maybe my preferred candidate in the situation. I don't know that then we go to the other end of the spectrum that Kalen DeBoer or Lane Kiffin or Marcus Freeman are 1, available, 2, interested, and 3, like, realistic. And I do think that, like, that's a fascinating part of this. If it is Bob Chesney, in a similar way that we almost need to hold him accountable for what he said, if it would be Terry Smith, like, I think we need to just be cognizant of going back and looking at comparing what Pat Kraft said to what became reality. And I do think, though, ultimately, I do think that hiring Terry Smith, because of the emotion and the warm and fuzzies, like, that to me shows that there was not a plan. Like, there was not a plan in firing James Franklin.
Or they all got hired. The path he thought was going to have got away from him,
which is not good. That is bad. That like
right.
Like he should have thought that through. And I do think that's why I say, like, the button made the situation so much more messy.
Right. No, that's right. Yep.
Okay. Anything else you want to say there?
No, I want to hear the notes on the stadium stuff because that's what else you got left, right?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I want to hear those.
Well, did you go to the game? Were you not?
I did, and I'm still waiting to see. I'm going to beat you on one of your notes. I'm still waiting to see Rich Gardner.
Wow, that was mean.
Yeah, yes, but stop it. I don't know what you're going to have. There are 7 of these. Going back to Tyler Donohue's thing, you get 13 of these Saturdays a year. At Beaver Stadium, you get 7 of them. That's it. And you are one of the biggest stadiums in the world. Even with the generously 90,000 people they really had there, and that's generous probably. Aren't you disappointed in it? I mean, aren't you just a little bit disappointed that stuff isn't smoother? Because you know you are, right? You know you are. That's all.
The scoreboard broke. Shit happens. I get it. Shit happens.
But it's one thing if it happens to Darian and Steve's podcast where the internet screws up, right? It's another thing when it's that situation with the stadium we just described and one of the largest in the world and millions of dollars of revenue to address things, but apparently not those things. So that's all. I mean, yeah, there were a couple things. There was the whole. Go ahead. I'll
go ahead. Keep going. You're on a roll.
The seniors out of order.
Keep going.
The seniors out of order.
That was a little awkward.
Thank you.
It was a little awkward. It took Rodney a second to rebound.
It wasn't his fault. Not his fault.
So we figured that one out. That's good. I don't know. I just
Little Lion I love. You're right about that. You wrote about that, didn't you? That's a Little Lion I love.
Oh, the Simba Cam. Yeah, like yeah, I think there's a there. But I think ultimately, to your point, to what I've experienced, and I'm just getting crucified. People do not understand the difference between game day experience and game day presentation. Part of that was because I screwed up and put that on the reel that I made. But our reel that went a little semi-viral, everybody's like, oh, I've been to Ohio State. It's a terrible experience. Tailgating's awful. I'm not talking about tailgating. I'm talking about game day presentation.
They're bothering you because you're making that voice about them. Why can't you use a different voice when you're talking about them?
Because that's what people in Ohio sound like to me.
Okay. Okay.
No offense to all of our Ohio listeners, all 0 of them. So, but like, I think to your point, a couple of things. I think to your point, number one, I guarantee you there is at least one student on campus that can code, that can scrape an API because I can do it. It's not that hard. And develop a system that shows stats, that's developed so that things don't have to be as automated. Because that's what it feels like. It feels like, to your point, it feels like the people that are doing the job are doing the best that they can with a couple resources and as opposed to a whole arsenal of resources. And we say that this is the greatest show, but I just feel like at times it's half-assed. And I think that's the biggest takeaway of the season in some ways. I think the Oregon game was incredible. I think they knocked it out of the park then. I think even the Indiana game was a good experience for what was happening, maybe more so on the field. But like, it would be nice if it would be consistent. And I think it just feels like there is not enough, weirdly not enough actual tools in the tool belt for the people that are working on it to make it happen. So anyways, back to the student labor point. Use some student labor. Go contact the IST, the school IST. Ask them and say, hey, we want to develop live stats. We want to have all of this. I'm sure that you can find some people to gladly code that. I'm sure that if you found some people in the College of Com that could work on some graphics packages, which I do think the graphics packages have actually been pretty good this year.
Yeah,
but the advertising, let me rephrase that. The advertising would certainly go a long way. I think Highmark, as I wrote this week, Highmark knocked it out of the park this year. They had a different ad package for every single game. How hard is it to do that? It can't be that hard. Like I just know that it can't be that hard because I work in marketing. Like I know what goes into that, and it's little touches and little things like that I feel like are a miss, and I feel like, we want this people. This is the biggest thing. I was thinking about this the other day. This is the biggest thing, unless we take a European vacation. This is the biggest thing that Anna and I spend our money on. I bet you that's for pretty much every single other person in that stadium that is not a student. And I think people just want a little bit more value out of it. I think between the food quality, between the game day experience, the game day presentation, etc. I just think that that's what's missing.
And what was in there, even though it was cold, there were different faces. Well, I was a different face, obviously, but the younger families that are there, the people that are coming with kids, they're just, I just expect more. I just expect more.
No, and this is exactly why I write the review of the game day experience at the first game of the season, because that game especially is a cheap game that if you don't have a lot of discretionary income, you might only get to that one game per year, right? Like, and it needs to hit it out of the park then and there. And I just, I felt good after our conversation with Leah that next year it might get better. I actually did. Like, maybe now that she has a sense to time to experience it and understand, okay, we can't change this mid-season, but we can change this for next year. And I think that's big and coming. I really do.
We'll see. I hope so. I mean, I don't think more has to be, I don't think more is the answer. More isn't necessarily better. Better can be better. And they just have to figure out how to do that and what they really want to own, what changes from week to week. Because the things that stand out, what was it, 6 or 7 years ago for something, they did like a Marvel introduction before a game. And it just feels like, oh, you busted the bank for that one. Or, I mean, it was edited. It was just they edited. So you did it for one of the 7, but not all of the 7. Or even the students this weekend. I'm surprised and disappointed that on the weekend before Thanksgiving, no one said, students may not show up. And you know what we've done this year? We've coded the student section by colors. So if we ask these students if they're going to come, and certain ones say no, and we give them a credit on their account for next year, we would know that 5,000 of them maybe responded and said they weren't going to show up. Okay, we have 5,000 tickets to sell, and we can put them in a certain section, or we can give them a certain color, and we can get people in for $10 a pop. I mean, I'm sure that somebody said, well, that's that's degrading the value of the ticket. I can't possibly, why would I buy a season ticket if you're going to sell those for 10? Okay, sell them for 25. I'll pick a number. But make it so that the stadium's not empty there, because there's no way it was not going to be empty. Now, granted, they only knew a week out because of 7 o'clock start. Maybe noon, it would have been different.
No, it wouldn't have been different. It's always been, you always have a consistent, and this isn't even a Penn State problem. This is a national problem.
So it's not a big surprise. So somebody probably should have said, hey, if we do this, what if we ask the students, hey, who's coming? And if they say no, they're not coming, and we're going to give you a credit towards your thing next year, okay, we have to give that money away, or we credit to their bursar account if we can figure out how to talk to the academic side of the house. And then we sell some seats for these people who might want a chance to come, see the game, see the team that's on a winning streak, see whatever. And because they didn't do that, those are the things that make me worry about the lift for next year from whomever, because the DNA is not to do that.
That's fair. No, that's fair. I think I'm trying to think about specific moments. I think there was some good on Saturday. Let's not be all negative.
They broke a running record. They acknowledged
that, and I thought they did a nice job on that. I thought maybe they could have had a live countdown. That would have been a nice ad, because I can't get cell phone service, so I couldn't really check the ESPN box score as I was doing the mental math. I literally sat there and did the mental math. I was probably the one of like 10 people doing the mental math.
Once Greg Pickle posted, I was doing mental math.
But
thanks, Greg.
Yeah, shout out to Greg. But like, I think that was good. I thought they did a nice job of not doing it in the middle of the game. I thought that them waiting till the TV timeout was a really good call, because I think it made that moment better. I thought there was an on-field activation where the guy got to throw the football. I thought that was good. The guy was terrible at throwing the football, though. Might have been the worst quarterback I've seen since Anthony Morelli. Thank you. I thought that was. I don't know. I think there's little things that can get better. I think the number one gripe is still the fourth quarter flag. I also think that is a big thing.
There's hope for that. So maybe if you're not so mean-spirited about what else went on, maybe you'll get some love from the new people getting rid of that fourth quarter flag.
Yeah. Are we surprised that attendance was down year over year?
No.
Okay. Didn't think so.
No, I mean, the schedule early season was tough, even if you're announcing numbers, and then this number this weekend, when it falls on this weekend's always tough. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just curious. I did want to. I said show and tell, and I did want to show one thing that I picked up, because it was the first time I've seen them available. I mean, I know they were available. It was the first time that the concession stand I went to had them available.
Okay.
Program. Bought a program.
Oh.
Thought they
Nice.
First off, great cover. Thought that was a great cover.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thought it was a cool cover because it's got a Nike football on it, specifically showing the Nike swoosh. The last home game, Penn State will be a Nike school.
Good
other thing that pleasantly surprised me, this was all of the stuff at the beginning. Like, there's records in here, and this is up to date. Like, this is from this week. It's basically just this week's game notes, but like the fact that they were able to turn this around. Yep. The other thing that I think about this, all of my tickets live here on my cell phone. I now have something physical to take away from the game.
Oh,
so I think that's another, for $5. I think it's worth it to buy these. So I'm
$5. That's a bargain.
Yeah,
it's the best buy of the day.
I'm gonna start buying these. I would have spent $5 on a beer for my friend Steve if he would have come down to Champs, but he didn't.
He would have got $5 down to Champs. Yeah, well, they were free at the tailgate, so it was okay.
Fair. That's fair. Racked up a nice bill on Saturday. Okay.
Well, whose fault that was?
Not mine. Actually not mine. Okay. Anyways. Anything else you want to say football wise?
No.
Okay.
Bradley won. Good game. Excited for the final. Who thought the last game was going to be meaningful in this way? So it'll be fun.
Interesting. It'll be fun. I do think that the chance of Terry was cool. Like, that was a cool moment, all things considered. As much as we were just cynical about it, but at the same time,
I think it's a great storyline. I think it's wonderful. I'm happy for him. I just don't know that it's going to finish in the third act the way people want the show to play out.
I struggle with the fact that he's still talking to James Franklin every day, which is weird. But also, if you want to know how he's going to run the football program, he's probably going to run it how James Franklin ran it, or take a lot of those leanings. And in the same way that I think that's weird that Virginia Tech hired James Franklin when Brent Pry was the guy previously and learned everything. Like, it just would be weird to kind of follow through on that.
Although I thought his answer today to someone's question about the offense you're running and whatever, he's like, I'm the coach right now. This is the offense and running. This is who we are. I thought that was good. I thought that was, yes, it was a continuation, but that's clearly what's in his DNA.
It was too Rutgers.
We're going to run the ball more. We're going to do.
Yeah. That was what I.
Yeah, no, I didn't like that early on. I thought that was bad. I thought dodging the question early about the interview, which was a layup. Yep, going to have my chance to officially make my case this week.
Yeah.
Doesn't distract from them playing. Isn't 1-0. Isn't 1-0. Isn't 1-0. there was a little bit of that too early on that I'm like, oh, you were so authentic and so unguarded and so everything up to this moment. That felt different to me as part of the news conference, as opposed to, yes, this is the offense. Who's going to speak for me? But if I don't, I thought that stuff was great. But we're focused on this opponent. Getting on there felt a little different.
No, didn't need that. No, I mean, just didn't need that. So, all right, we can move on to Old Guy Young Guy. Old Guy Young Guy is brought to you by Thanksgiving this week. How does the Samsel family store, I guess would be the best question, their recipes?
Oh, it's a circus. It's an unbridled circus of index cards, paper printouts, old cookbooks on a shelf in the pantry that's leaning a little bit.
Okay.
And if you're lucky and the last person was good enough to like actually get the piece of paper stacked together and jog them together so that you can look through them, they're not alphabetical. They're not by type of recipe. There might be a couple things on our phone. It's funny. I was thinking about this a couple weeks ago. I'm like, maybe over break we should sit down and update this, because we talked about it like 10 years ago and updated some stuff. But it's a circus.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that this is not a generational problem. We ran into a problem today. Well, more so, me ran into a problem today, where I was going to use the New York Times recipe for a turkey this week because we need to get our ingredients list. So we're gonna go shopping tomorrow. However, the New York Times, for some reason, put that recipe behind a paywall, and I was like, oh, I should have saved that, and I didn't have it saved anywhere. And now I have it. I had to find a way around the paywall, and I did. But then I realized that this wasn't even the right recipe that I used last year. So Anna has a pretty extensive cookbook selection, so that we rely on. And then she keeps most of her recipes like in notes or in a like screenshots in her phone. So she is organized that way. A couple
of those too, but yeah.
But sometimes it's a little bit of a crapshoot in terms of like finding the recipe.
Yeah, no, they're not alphabetical. I know the shape of how the piece of paper is folded for the ones I'm looking for.
So you are not like everything's got to be printed out for a recipe for you guys.
Oh no, I have screen captures for a couple different things, from Russ's wing sauce, a couple other things, and they're on my phone, some of them, but it's just easier if I print them out. Then I know they're in the pantry. So no, probably most of it's printed out. I mean, I may Google. What did I Google last week? Something. Oh, I know it's in there, but I just didn't know the percentages was like puppy chow. Right. Sam was coming back, and I'm like, oh, I have these Rice Krispie things. Are these rice squares? I can make this. So that was a Google search. So if the internet's ever out, the kids aren't getting puppy chow.
Very important to get the puppy chow.
That's right.
Love puppy chow. I had puppy chow in a while. That was a Nittanyville thing. We Nikolai used to make puppy chow and bring it in just like a grocery bag, which is super sanitary. We not
even a Ziploc bag, huh?
Just shove our hands in there and eat it.
So. Well, you're in college. But look, 20 years before that, we would go. I told you this. We would go to the first, and they would pass around the jug of whatever it was at the end of the night, and people just take swigs. So
no, better than you did not tell me that.
Oh yeah, that was the first thing.
And I'm just mad that they
one person to the next, right down the table.
A pitcher nowadays is not even really a pitcher anymore.
Right.
Back in my day. Okay, that's enough of us this week. We'll have normal stuff. We'll partake in some capitalism. Might have some new stuff, like same designs, but new stuff on the blog this week. So we'll have that. Usual flow. May publish on Wednesday. Well, we'll see, Wednesday or Friday. Haven't decided yet. But at some point, maybe a little bit earlier or later this week for the game preview, game recap. I do want to say thank you to everybody that was on the website on Saturday. You actually legitimately crashed the website. We had the most concurrent. We had more concurrent visitors than we had in like our first 2 months as a blog at one point. So really cool. Really appreciate that. K-Tron. Thanks to K-Tron Allen for doing all the heavy lifting for us. So yeah. And then, there could be a coach to talk about next.
Coach or bowl game? We're here for all of it.
Yeah.
Is it a work trip if I have to go to Nashville?
There are no funds to expense it, so it's all out of pocket.
It's the same pay rate that's coming in. Okay, never mind.
I will give you a 0 or 100% raise on.
That's what I wanted to hear. I'll tell the boss that and see how that works out.
Good luck with that. My God, Steve, Nashville at a Penn State game day. My God, do you imagine? Anyways, this podcast is way too long. The name of this podcast we already know. The website's called StuffSummerSays.com. Thank you to Tyler for joining us. On that website, though, there's a section called With
Steve.
I'm all out of order. Thank 5 stars. Subscribe, like, all of that. I have an email. Mine's Darian at StuffSummerSays.com. Steve's is
Steve at StuffSummerSays.com.
And lastly, you can find me on the internet at StuffSummerSays. You can find Steve
at Steve Samsel.
See ya. Bye.